Alrighty. Let's get back at her here for a sec. Just gonna get some measurements for some guys that have reached out. And this is the holy grail. If you're building one of these trucks, you need one of these, and it's specifically for a couple pages. I do need to get over here and turn the rest of these lights on, but I have, let's see if I can locate this particular page that I was talking about. Yeah, I'll have to find this page here, but give me a minute here. I'll get my lights turned on, and then I'll take some measurements for everyone. Alrighty, so I had someone previously message me about my cab mounts, and I had another couple dudes message me about my C-notch in my frame and the overall dimensions of my frame. So I could just, I'll do a really quick video on what I've done with my frame to get the ride height that I'm at, placement of the exhaust, placement of my engine and transmission, and the placement of my rear diff. So where to start? The ride height on my truck, which I could cut to a quick video. The ride height on my truck is about 4.5, 5 inches. I still haven't dialed it in, but I did. Here, I'll show you. That 4.5, 5 inches is with my lower control arms level. So everywhere I read, you want your ride height when your lower control arm is level. Also your ride height, your pinion angle, your drive shaft angle, and your engine angle all have to be set. So I did a whole bunch of Googling, and I found, I forget what it was, like Tacoma World or something like that. It was driveline angles, and you just put your dimensions in, and it gives you all your angles and everything. So before you can do that, you need to know what size of wheel you're running. So that's an important part for this little adventure. So the very first thing that I bought when I built my truck were these wheels and tires. And these are 235 75 15. And that is on a 15x8, I forget what the brand is, American Racing or American Steelies or something like that. American Steel wheels. They're all pretty much the same. It's a 15x8 steel wheel though, with a 235 75 15 tire. So that gives me a height of about 28 and a quarter inches high. And I've got the same wheels and tires, front and back. So as soon as you have that figured out, you can figure out the center point on your rear axle. And then you can figure out the spindle height on your front suspension. So right here. So I have a 2-inch dropped spindle. So you can order that. You can order these suspension setups with a 2-inch drop built into it. And all it does is this point right here, it just gets manufactured so it sits 2 inches higher on the spindle versus the regular ones where it's 2 inches lower down here. So once you have your wheels and your tires picked out, you figure out the center point on those. And then you fabricate, put your chassis where you want it. You want the ride height. So for us with these trucks, we use our running boards, install the running boards, which another guy asked me which brackets go where. So I could maybe show you that real quick, but you mount your running boards, you lift your frame, and you find that spot where you want your running board to be. For me, I chose 4.5, 5 inches around there. And then I leveled the frame. And honestly, I do wish I had a chassis table, but I didn't. So I just used 2 levels. I used 2 levels, and I used identical, where are they? Here. Well, that's two separate sets, but my other ones are, there's a set here, there's another set there. So I used 4 identical jack stands, and I lifted this up. And luckily, the concrete floor that my frame is on is pretty damn level. I used that, leveled this off, got my chassis where I wanted it to be, set my axle where I wanted it to be, and then I notched it, and I figured out where my center cross member had to be. So I'm not going to bother giving you the dimensions of these center cross members from the front to the frame and back, because every manufacturer that you buy one of these from gives you that set of instructions. I could probably throw it up in the video, but it would probably take me more time than it would take you. That is a little bit different, the rear end, because I wanted my wheels to sit perfectly center in there. So I can give you this measurement real quick. So from the back of my frame rail, right to the center of my axle, we've got 36 and let's go 9/16. 36 and 9/16 to the center of my axle. So that's where you'll want the center of your C-notch to sit. Lots to soak in there, but it's all good information. For these cab mounts, it is 23.5 inches from the center of the cab mount to the center of the frame. So that is 46, that's 47. So it's a 47-inch difference or hole gap between the 2 cab mount holes. So use that math as you wish. I could give you a quick little rundown. These guys here are, that's 2.5 inches. I have this 1/8 plate sitting on top of my frame rail, and then I seriously did cardboard design with this. I made a mount out of cardboard. I traced it out onto steel. I made one, made sure it fit, made sure it looked good, and then before I welded it all, I just duplicated it and mirrored it and put it on that side. So that's how I did that. So go back to that. That is, yeah, 2.5 by, again, 2.5. That's 2 inches, sorry. 2 inches on this side. And it's, you can actually use the existing cab mounts when you cut them off. I did save my cab mounts. There we go. So this is the original passenger side cab mount. See, I just copied the original passenger side cab mount, mirrored it, and made it for the driver's side. Like, It's pretty simple. This is 1/8 steel, and it's formed, so it's extremely strong, but yeah, you get the point with that. If you own one of these trucks, you've seen that these rear mounts, I believe they're made from factory, where one sat like that, and then for some reason, just because it was cheaper, GM made it so the other one actually sat on the frame like that, so they're opposites. They're duplicate parts, so when they go on opposite sides, they go opposite. So that looks ugly. I like this way. It just looks a little bit better when they're both winged out the same. One of those symmetry things that I was kind of going for. Alrighty, what else do we got? People were commenting about the clearance I have between my headers. So I have about 1/4 of an inch clearance between this header and this frame rail. I don't know if I should be concerned about that. If someone thinks I should be concerned about that, maybe weigh in. And I also have about that same amount of clearance over on this side. They're pretty tight, but yeah, these ultimate headers, that's where I got these. I actually spoke to the guys at Ultimate Headers, and they told me the part number. They gave me the dimensions. They gave me the drawings. So that I could do my own measurements, and yeah, they turned out to fit pretty damn well. So they do sit, here I'll show you how low they sit. They sit just under where the oil pan sits, so my headers actually are besides the running boards. The headers are the lowest part of my chassis, but that goes that's pretty common for a lot of hot rods. So I'm not too concerned about that also. Okay, what else do we got here? I'll give you a quick measurement of these C notches. Nothing crazy. You can easily make this yourself. Well, here, let's get a better measuring tool. That's about 8.5 inches by 2 5/8 across wide. So that means up, yeah, right here. That's 2 5/8 because your what do you got here? Yeah, your frame rail is 2.5 inches, I believe. I can't quite remember actually though, because I did box my frame. And I also learned how to weld, so hence these big ugly welds versus the nicer, stronger welds. I did previously grind off a bunch of welds, but I think that's unsafe. It is unsafe. Do not grind off your welds. I am going to chamfer these and then lay another bead down just to make them all nice and strong once again. That was a pretty amateur move to grind off my welds, trying to hide my ugly, boogery welds. That's fine though, whatever. Deal with that. Okay, what else do we got? This is kind of something you're gonna have to play with yourself. You're gonna have to figure out where your axle sits. And then if you're running coilovers or airbags on the lower link, or however you're gonna do it. But yeah, it's coming along. So this is a custom fuel tank made by a company up in Canada here called Overkill Custom Fabrications. So I believe it's a 21 gallon tank, 20 gallon, something like that.
Hi, Dad.
Sorry about that. I was interrupted, but I was talking about this custom fuel tank. So originally the guy that provides these has these tabs flipped upside down, so they actually mount to the bottom side of the rail. I had him mount them up top because I'm going to have a raised box floor, so I can actually access this from above, so I'm not too concerned. If you do not intend to raise the bed floor or have a raised bed floor, have it so it mounts to the bottom so you can drop your fuel tank without having to take your bed off. because when your truck's all painted and put together, you don't want to have to take it back apart. That being said, the reason that I had him do that is I have a nice tucked up fuel tank, and I've also had some rubber gaskets or bushings, whatever, I forget what they're called, spacers, made to hold up the fuel tank just to isolate it from the vibrations. I will have to ground it. It is grounded with the fasteners, but I don't know. For some reason that bothers me. I would like to ground it properly, but I'm sure those fasteners do ground it properly. I don't know. If someone knows better, speak up, let me know. I have this plate that I threw a logo in. I had my older brother design a nice shop logo for me. I did need to install this plate here because the pressure from these coilovers pushing up on this bar, it may cause a lot of stress on these welds, and it's a square tube. I did reinforce it, so after I drilled these out, I put a collar inside there and then I welded it so it's strong. It's stiff inside there. But I installed this just to give it that added strength. So now there's no way that is gonna fatigue or fail. And again, I made that out of 1/8. Alrighty, what else do I got here for you? Can't really think of anything else. These rear cab mounts, I don't know how much good they'll be for you because I have a custom floor in my truck. I could show you that custom floor, but it'll be a little bit challenging. Let's have a look anyways, see if I can figure it out. Okay, so I did do a custom floor in this, custom firewall, custom trans tunnel, and it is made using 16 gauge steel. Now on below that 16 gauge steel, I do have a subframe of 1x2 100 wall. Let's see if you'll be able to see it from here. Let's have a look. Yeah, there you go. See that subframe? So that subframe has the holes for the cab right there, and however appropriately spaced at the back. It's nice and strong. So this subframe is also why I'm not concerned about this not having any reinforcement over top of it. Because if this fails and it goes up, I have that subframe underneath my cab. So I can't really give you any valuable information on this unless you do what I did with my cab, and that was a lot of extra work that is kind of unnecessary, but just for the hell of it, let's do a little measurement here. So total width across is just shy of 4 feet, 47 3/4 approximately. From that bolt hole, yeah, let's go with this. So from that bolt hole to the mount line, see that scribe line, is 37.5 inches. So 37.5 minus whatever it is to that hole, say 36 3/4 approximately. From that mount hole to that mount hole, 36 3/4, whatever that equates to. Now this is something that you might be curious about. This is my box mount. So my box rail, actually, here I'll come over here and I'll show you this. Before I get to the box, I'm just gonna show you something quick. So this is what the boxes mount to normally, and they're actually sitting on like a wooden block with a rubber spacer. So I actually figured out what the height of that was by watching another YouTuber. His name was the Idaho Fabricator. that's where I got this idea. I just revised it and changed it according to the materials I have. And that is from the height of the rail to the top of it is 2 1/4 inches, approximately 2 3/8. So it is 2 3/8 from the top of my frame rail to the mount. And all I did was take square tubing that is 3 inches, and I cut a 3-inch section of it off, and then I just cut it across there, and that rail on my box actually sits in there and locates. So when I set my box on here, I don't have to worry about it falling off that way. Just kind of a secure way to hold it. I'm a little bit concerned about rust, but that's a pretty beefy hunk of steel. It is pretty well covered, so other than dirt and dust and stuff like that, I'm not really overly concerned about it. And I'm not going to be driving this thing when it's snowing. So there's that. Currently it is just drilled right through a hole, and then I have to put a nut on the other side. But what I would like to do is drop a threaded nut into that and weld it so that I could just have one fastener that I use to put my box on. Now, when it comes to mounting anything to the frame, before I plated and boxed my rails, I did something very tedious, but I went and mounted everything to it that I knew I was going to need to mount, and that was the running boards, the front bumpers, the rear bumper, the fuel tank, and I actually fastened everything in there, and I put fasteners on it, and I welded the fastener on the backside before I boxed it. I did just lie to you. The fuel tank I did after. I actually used a riv nut gun. I have a brother with a riv nut gun, so he installed those riv nuts on there. Riv nuts are awesome. So that's what I used on there. So yeah, you can actually see the threaded fastener right in there. See that? So this one, actually, I used a threaded sleeve about this long, and I dropped it way down into there just so that, I don't know, because it was going to be in there and it's a long fastener, I didn't want to risk stripping thread. So I assumed that having a nice long fastener in there that runs fairly deep down would prevent me from stripping it. Also, it gives it more strength. I can get more torque on it that way. Okay, moving on to the box. So, yeah, let's grab the tape measure again. Now, moment of truth. How much of my box depth did I lose? Currently with my design, I have 10.5 inches of box depth. So, you'll be able to see right here, these points, these spot welds that I drilled out off this Marquet MAR-K box. Alrighty, sorry about that. I was interrupted once again. Where we were at was 10.5 inches of box depth. We'll do a little measurement here. So, how should we measure this? I'm just gonna do an approximate measurement. Well, so I lied. I told someone earlier that it was about 2.5 inches of box depth that I lost by doing that C-notch. And it is actually closer to about 3.25 inches. So I lost 3.25 inches of box height, approximately. Now, that 3.5 inches or 3.25 inches box height is about how much I notched my frame. See that, 3 inches? So when I was doing this, I had kind of figured out that the most that I'd be able to notch this frame was essentially the thickness of the frame to allow it to drop down as much as it could with about 2 inches of travel on these coilovers. 2 inches of travel and then a 1/2 inch bump stop is what I'm gonna go with. That gives me another 1/2 inch of movement before it hits the bump stop. This guy here, let's have a little look. If you look there, I have about 1¼ inches approximately from the top of this to the top of this. But 1¼ inches, these two supports for the bedwood. You see how the bedwood sits on the 1 inch? The 1 inch actually sits about 1 inch higher, or about the same, on the same plane as this, the same height. So that means I have about 2¼ inches of travel at the top of my pumpkin before it hits the wood. So, mind you, if I bottom out, or if I do a jump in this thing, I probably will damage the bedwood, but I should just avoid doing jumps in this truck. What else do we got here? Lots of information, way too much information. Let's close this door here on this truck before I, oh, come on. Oh. I do have a request from someone to measure the distance from the back of the front of the box to the back of my cab, but as you can see, that measurement is not accurate right now. I have to wait till they're back on the frame before I can make that measurement. What else do we got here? I guess I could kind of sort of half-ass give you the measurement of where my cab mounts to the back of the block. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough. I'll give it a crack. Let's try, see if we can do that anyways, just for the hell of it. Okay, let's go like this. So that scribe line that I had previously drawn, I did do a scribe line across the horizontal axis of this frame here, so that I knew my cab was going to sit perpendicular to the run of the chassis. So if I throw this on here, I know this is perfectly straight across, so I'll just pinch that down with my foot. I'm going to throw this tape measure on here, and I'm going to go to the back of the block right above the starter, and that's 13.5 inches. 13.5 inches. Someone's calling me. So yeah, 13.5 inches. I can show you where I'm measuring to. So, like I was telling you, that scribe line, that runs right across onto the other cab mount. Now I know that's perfectly perpendicular to the length run of the drive line. So I'm measuring to this point right here, and it is 13.5 inches. Now if I measure up from there, that's not going to be a very useful measurement, but I'll do it anyways, just for the hell of it. for the back of that nut. It's 12.5 inches. Yeah. What else do we got here? I could give you with that measurement. So I'm using an ICT billet front pulley kit. And what that does is I use like an LS1 F-body water pump. And it actually, to place the alternator up here, you have to install these spacers. And when you install these spacers, you actually, to keep this pulley in line with this and that and my crank down here, the front of my crank, you have to actually use spacers on the water pump. So that pushes my water pump out about, let's have a little measurement here. Get a little measurement. That is about 3/4 of an inch. That's with the additional gasket between the water pump, because you have to have a gasket on the other side of that spacer. So 3/4 of an inch, give or take a 1/16. So it pushes this out almost a full inch. And now you see this? Look at that. Like that is close. It's lucky that this fan is mounted as high up as it is, or else they would be contacting. That would suck. You can get low profile spall fans. This is not a low profile spall fan. I was considering moving it in, but I don't know. I've got enough room there. I'm content with that clearance. Also, the reason that I wanted an LS1 F-body water pump is because this comes straight out, not vertical. I can run my coolant hose up nice and tight. It'll be nice and clean. This is actually going to be removed. It's going to be spun down and running into the low point. So yeah, I have a custom rad mount right here that I made myself. I fabricated it in CAD. And then I have a custom rubber spacer that I'm using to hold my radiator, whatever this is, housing on. And I got that measurement by putting all the body panels together and then just slowly putting spacers in this to get it to where I wanted the body panels to all look perfect. Tightened everything up, made sure it was good, and then I measured the gap. And I created, what do we got here? Here's another one. I created one of these. So it's literally just a spacer with a rubber gasket. And then I cut the all the fixture off of the bottom of that. I made this. So yeah, I don't know, if somebody wants to buy this, I do have one for sale. They're not very expensive to ship, so I'm not really concerned about that. Let's get a measurement on this front bumper and I'll show you where we sit. So the front bumper is sitting about 6 inches off the ground. That's a lot of clearance. That's fine. And once I lift the truck up accordingly with the running boards, that front bumper should come up a little bit as well. That's where we're at. I don't know really what else more to give you. My truck is torn apart. My bedwood is going in next. The mufflers need to be re-welded. I did have to cut them out to get everything lined up perfectly like my previous video showed. These need to be fully welded. I need to finish welding my H-pipe in. I put a lot of heat on there, so I had to take a break so I didn't weld it and force it to move all around. Got to re-weld these. I built a new cross member for my transmission so it sits down, it's nice and strong. I got enough room right here to actually take the transmission and slide it back off of the torque converter so I can actually remove it. And I have it so that this whole transmission cross member can come out to be able to remove it. I've got lots of small lengths of welding. I made the mistake too many times where I fully welded and then had to cut shit apart, just like this. I had to cut this apart. I had to redo that. I had to cut some stuff off here. I've had to cut a lot of stuff apart that I fully welded, so I'm not making that mistake again. I'm leaving it tacked until I'm content. And as soon as it's ready for powder coat, then I'll do all the final welding and ship her off.